Hi, I'm Sophie Hannah.
Hi, I'm Marisha Pink.
Hi, I'm Monah, and welcome to episode 65 of Ethnically Speaking, the show where we discuss everything affecting the UK's highly melanated communities, from pop culture to current affair and everything in between. Today we are joined by author Marisha Pink, co-founder of the United Melanin Group and executive producer of the show. Welcome, Marisha.
Hi, ladies. Great to be back with you.
Great to see you. As always, we're going to be keeping it 100, and today we'll be talking all about revealing your body count. Yes, I said it, revealing your body count. Rapper and influencer Ivorian Doll made a TikTok video calling out men who have asked her body count on dates. For those of you who don't know, a body count is the amount of people that you have slept with. Do you think it is appropriate to ask someone on a date what their body count is? Is it important? And if so, when do you think is the right time to bring up the conversation and ask somebody about their body count?
Can I just tell you, I was so excited to come and chat with you ladies about this. It's really sad. There's quite a lot of questions. I'm gonna expand on a few of my thoughts a bit later, but I will just say top line that I think it's absolutely okay to ask somebody that you're in a relationship with. I think if you're on a first date, you better mind your business. You don't know whether that first date is going to lead to more dates. You don't know if that person's going to be in your life for any substantial amount of time or be significant, in which case it's got nothing to do with you. I think the real question is, why are you asking? Because it could be just, I don't know, sort of pillow talk. It could be curiosity. I think you need to ask yourself before you ask your partner, why do I want to know this information? What is it I think I'm going to gain in terms of knowledge or, I guess, predictability, I think some women ask for. They seem to think that somebody's sort of sexual history might give them an indication as to what their future might be like or how important that person is. And that's the bit that I think is really the important bit. Why are you asking? And also, if you're going to ask, you need to be prepared for a wide variety of answers. You can't come with that kind of the judgment face. You know, the face that you make when you hear a bit of news that you weren't expecting. If you're going to ask, you have to be open to a variety of responses. And I think a lot of people, not just women, but I think a lot of people that ask already have in their mind what response they're expecting. And the face is a dead giveaway when the response they get isn't that.
Marisha, would you like to just demonstrate the face, please?
I don't do the face. I wasn't talking about me. I don't do the face.
No,
I don't do the face. I will say I have done it.
I would 100% do the face.
Really?
I'm sure I would. No, I'm saying if there's a face to be made, I'm going to make it because I can't hide any emotions. Not in reference to the question.
Okay. I mean, I will say younger Marisha has definitely made the face. Like younger Marisha who was probably more inexperienced herself. I'll tell you a story later. Older Marisha doesn't really care. Like if it comes up in conversation, I'll answer it if you'll answer it. I'm not doing that. You ask me, but you won't answer the question. I think that's a bit of a double standard, but I don't really care about the answer is the truth of it. What do you ladies think?
I think, do you know what? I've been asked, I was asked a lot when I was a teenager, dating guys, but I think that was more reflective of the guys that I dated. They were kind of like bad boys, you know, like kind of not road men, but they weren't the best guys. Like they weren't like necessarily into something illegal. And they would ask, and I thought that it was just a normal pattern for somebody to ask, until a friend who was like a mentor to me, and like my late teen was like, it's not normal. And I was just like, oh. So I was like, oh, okay, I shouldn't be answering this question. But at that time, the answer was 0. So I had no problem answering. To be honest, telling them I was a virgin was actually more of a turn off than telling them that I had had sex, because, and I've seen that with friends that I have now who still haven't had sex, and they're like my age or a bit older or a bit younger, and guys are like, oh, I don't want to have to train you. I don't want to have to teach you. I want you to come in with a certain amount of knowledge and experience. So part of me feels like you're screwed either way. Either you're having too much sex or not enough sex. People are like Goldilocks out here. I want it just right. I want it just right. So I don't know, but I think for me, I'm never answering the question anymore. My mum told me, like, don't answer the question. For me, and she was just like, one, they're asking out of curiosity, because as Marisha said, I want to know why, but I think most men either want to know so they can kind of judge you on it. If I'm being honest, to kind of work out, where does she stand? Is she promiscuous? Do I want to date someone promiscuous? Or maybe because they have some sort of envy. So they want to, compare, or they don't want you to have more partners than them, or they don't want you to kind of grade them in bed and you not be up to the standard. And I think 3, for me, what difference does it make? Like, for me, I'm like, it's none of your business, to be honest. What does that have to do with you wanting to be in a relationship with me? So I don't answer the question. And to be honest, guys haven't asked me in the past few years, and I haven't asked them either. If I think about it, it's never really come up. And I personally, I don't know if it is a question that is just pillow talk. I don't think it's a question that just comes up without anything behind it. I think there's always something behind the question. But for me, I wouldn't answer the question. And and I haven't been asked, and I'm not going to answer it, because I'm just like, what does that have to do with our relationship?
Same like Marisha, I've been so excited to just get stuck in on this. What you said, Sophie, about you're screwed either way, 100%. You are screwed either way, because it's like people are like Goldilocks. They want it just right. You can't win. And everyone's just right is interpersonal to them, right? So this
is it. How many is too many? How many is too little?
It's too subjective, exactly. And I think for men, when they ask the question, it is just to try and pigeonhole you into a category. So either you are underexperienced, and because it's so, when I've heard conversations, when I've listened to like podcasts and stuff, it's like just the right number where you're quote unquote not for the streets, but you don't have any issues as to why you're a virgin if you're like older, because you're past the age of when people typically lose it. Or if it's too high, you're for the streets, you're promiscuous, they don't want to turn a hoe into a housewife, all of this nonsense. And for women who are asking men, I think that women are, and I won't speak for the whole of women, but the women that I've spoken to and that I know, they're a lot more forgiving in terms of like, it's that comment of, oh, men will be men, they're going to sow their wild oats and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like expected if they've been with loads of people. My thing is, right, and this is me just being a bit catty, if you have a high body count, but I hope I can be black and white here, you still don't know how to satisfy a woman. You're not very sure of the female anatomy. That's a bit worrying to me then, because you're running through people and having sex for yourself, but you're not actually thinking about the other person. So if somebody was to ask about body counts, right, and it was because it helps them to get to know the person a bit more, and they actually asked following up questions like, okay, so you've only had sex with this amount of people, your body count is very low. Why is that? Is it personal reasons? Is it this? Is it that? Da, da, da. Okay, so when it comes to sex, how do you view it? Blah, blah, blah. If it was follow-up questions like that, then to me, you're trying to get a whole perspective of this person. And I understand that. But if you're going to throw off that comment, nothing's going to be led to it. Are you a schoolboy in the courtyard? No. Why are you having that type of conversation? It's not something that I would shy away from. And I think that if I was curious, I would ask. I don't see any reason as to why I wouldn't ask. I wouldn't feel offended if somebody asked me. What I get offended about is more times when I've said the answer, I've never been believed. I've always been challenged on it. And that offends me a lot. Because are you trying to say, especially as being a black woman, are you trying to say that I should be sexually promiscuous? Or do you know what I mean? That's where I start to get a little bit more funny. It's the follow-ups after that. Sorry, I feel like I've gone off on a tangent. Let someone else talk.
No, I don't think you have gone off on a tangent, because I think that makes sense, because I don't know how you can answer that question and it not lead to other certain questions. Like, I know people who have been asked the question and then they want to know how many times with those people, what did you do, what positions, like they want to know the nitty gritties. And for me, I'm just like, it's just none of your business. Like, what I got up to with my ex is just none of your business. Like, and I think for me, as you were saying, Monah, what do you get from the information? Because I knew somebody who got into a relationship. She had one partner, and she was just like, her partner, he was like, he had slept with a lot of people. And she was like, and I still had to teach him a lot in the bedroom because he knew nothing about intimacy or how to please a woman. So a high body count doesn't really mean anything specifically about experience. It doesn't know what challenges you. A guy could sleep with 50 women and last for 2 minutes with every single one. And then you might be like, wow, I'm going to get something great. And then it's just, wow. Like, for a guy, it would be more of a letdown. Honestly, if he wanted to brag, I'd be like, but you said what? I thought it was going to last longer. What's going on? Like, for me, I would have to really ask, why do you want to, and I mean that genuinely, because I know how I come across. I come across very strong and opinionated, but I'd really want to be like, why do you need to know? Like, what is this information going to help you with? If it's going to make you decide whether you want to be with me or not, then you're not the person I want to be with. So I can already answer that question for you. But why do you need to know? Like, what is it going to make you feel better if it's high? Are you going to feel like, oh, you didn't hit it right? Men have all these preconceptions about sex. I'm not upset about it, because I feel like we as women have to overlize anything. Men have to, perform in the bedroom. I feel like that's the one big thing that's important to them, and something that women put on them as well. So they can carry that bag, but I am not going to play into all your ego and whatever by you trying to pull out my sexual history.
I think it's as Monah and Sophie was saying, it's a very layered question, and it's so gender specific, because I think if I've ever asked, it genuinely is just pillow talk, curiosity. I honestly, like I said, as where I am now in my life, I wouldn't read too much into it. It's just part of, I guess, getting to know you. If you don't want to answer it, don't answer it. It's not something I would pressure you into answering. I think when men ask women, it has those undertones, and you're right, there is no right answer. But I think you can, if what you want to know by way of those follow-up questions is the truth of what it is you're trying to understand, there are other ways to get there. So asking about people's sexual experience doesn't have to include the numbers necessarily. And I think it's maybe more about people's attitude. And I don't think you should judge people on that. So for some people, what we call being promiscuous or whatever it is, they're comfortable with casual sex, they're comfortable with multiple partners. Their number will naturally be high because they don't feel any kind of ways about sharing their body with anybody, and that's their business. If you're somebody that, I guess, doesn't feel as comfortable with that, prefers to only have intimate moments with a partner, a long-term partner, whatever it might be, your count's going to be lower. I also think people can change. People can behave, especially men, can behave one way in their youth and be like, if you look at a timeline, you'll be racking up the numbers when you're just out putting your business out in the streets. And then you grow up a bit, and maybe you settle down a bit. Maybe you enter into more long-term relationships. And then it sort of evens out a bit. So I think it will depend on so many different factors. If what you're actually asking is, how important is sex to you? I.e., is it something that you only share with a person that you really deeply care about? Or is it something that is not disposable, but something that can go either way for you? That's the question you need to be asking. You don't need to know the numbers. And that's a straightforward question with a straightforward answer. And for you to then work out, again, it's not to judge people and say, well, I think you should be more liberal with your sexuality or vice versa. It's more to work out whether that person is aligned and compatible with you and what you feel comfortable with. But I don't think men have, I say this, I don't think men have the same hard time, if you like, in grappling with whether they should reveal what their number is or anybody feeling any kind of ways about it because of that bravado that comes with it. But I know that when I was much younger and I hadn't slept with anybody, asking somebody that I was dating, and he was in double digits, and I was so, I don't know if I was naive, I was shocked by that, right? And I was expecting there to be a number. I wasn't expecting it to be double digits. The only time I did the face where I was just like, whoa, was not expecting that to be the response. And I was genuinely asking because I think I had a preconceived notion of what it should be like because I hadn't been intimate with anybody. And he turned around and said to me, that's pretty normal for like round about the age that we are. And, I'm a guy, it's fine. So I think as an older woman now, I probably wouldn't to really care that much about it. But it can be a different story when you're younger. And like you said, Sophie, when you're growing up, the types of people that are asking you that, and the reason they're asking you is a much more sort of, is much less deep rooted in really trying to understand you as a person and understand what role sex plays in your life or may play in your relationship.
I think...
But I just want... No, go ahead, Mona, because I was talking before.
I think for... one of the things that really upsets me is just the way that it's glorified in what the count should be for women. So if you listen to like lyrics in rap songs and all that stuff, they say so outwardly, yeah, well, you know, women lie. When she tells you her body count, you've got to times it by 3. Things like that, right? That perpetuate a real negative stereotype and stigma onto women. And it's like, okay, going back to Ivorian Doll, before she was a rapper, she was an influencer, and she was very open in her discussions about sex. I've seen a couple of her videos giving women tips on how to give good blowjobs, different things, right? People go off that and think, yeah, cool, I'm going to label her as a whore, right? And that's why she's being targeted with all of these questions about her body count from men, might I add, from men, right? And it's like,
Mona, men who are taking her on dates and want to get some.
And the thing that gets me aggravated, right, is do you live underneath a rock? People can be educated, very educated on a subject that they have never experienced. Now, I'm not saying that Ivorian Doll is a virgin. That's not what's up for the question here. I'm just saying, by her having topics or open discussions about that shows that she's comfortable in herself to be able to have these conversations. That is not a green light to target her and be like, oh, well, if you're talking about this, then you must be like this and you must be like this. My sister is a very big wine drinker, so I'm quite interested in South African wine, Shiraz, red wine, house wine, all of that stuff. I don't drink. I've never been drunk a day in my life. If I was to have a conversation with a drinker and for them to be like, oh, you must love to get drunk then. No, I don't. I just know a bit about wine. Do you know what I mean? I just find it very stupid and a little bit childish. So I feel bad for the fact that she has to be subjected to this. And I'm so happy for her that she's calling people out because she's got a mouth. She's got a bark on her and a bite, and I love it. And I'm so happy that she's giving it to some people, because why are you so confident to ask that question to someone, especially when you bloody well know you are going to come with so much judgment? Because I like to believe that when me and my girlfriends have conversations, then she'll be like, girl, can you believe that he's on triple digits? And I say, what the hell did you say? She's like, I just drank my drink. Polite, well-mannered. At least we might pull a face that you could quickly just go, and then, you know, just switch it up. Maybe he didn't see. But if you feel that you're like judge, jury, and executor when you're being spoken to men, they don't have the same etiquette as us to try and be well-mannered. They just come straight through it. Oh, so you must be this, or oh, so you must be that. Because I remember a time when I was dating a guy and I was a virgin. He didn't know, but we had a conversation about virgins, and he was so ruthless. He was like, I would never date or sleep with a girl who's a virgin. She has daddy issues. I'm not here to recorrect that. I'm not trying to train anybody. Blah, 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 blah. He just went in, and I just thought, I wonder if you know the person who you're dating is, and obviously I cut it off, but I'm just not here for that energy. It's not that I'm not here for the question. It depends on your intentions and how you're presenting the question to me.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. Like I said, I'm at that age. Well, I'm only planning to sleep with my husband from now on. Do you know what I mean? But if I was ever out in the dating world again, like, I wouldn't answer the question. Even in marriage, I haven't even answered that question. He's never asked. It's never been on the table. And that's me being very honest, because I don't think it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think it reveals anything specific about me, about my character, or about who I am. So it is what it is. And I think you can kind of get a rough guess if you talk to someone about their ex-partners. Like, you don't actually have to ask a number, and like, oh, you could be like, how many girlfriends have you had? And, you know, over time, someone like, oh, when I dated this girl, is that girl? No, this is a different girl. You're like, oh, okay. And then you can kind of gather, oh, okay, maybe he's been with a few women or whatever. I think that if a woman, so I'm specifically talking about women, if they're being asked and you feel that you want to answer, just make sure it's with an emotionally mature man. That's what I would say. And one who is going to, and I saw this I think it was an InStyle magazine, and they were saying, you need to be in a comfortable in a relationship where you're comfortable, if asked, to either answer the question or to say, actually, I don't really want to answer that question, and it be okay either way. Other than that, like if it's a guy who's putting pressure on you to ask on dates when you're not in a relationship, I feel like that's revealing some very controlling tendencies. Because why is that important to you? Get into, I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record on this, but I think it has to be with someone who's mature enough to kind of deal with whatever answer it is that you're going to give them. But if a guy told me that he was in triple digits and he was kind of bragging about it, that would be a real turn off for me. Because like I said, I feel like because of my faith, I see sex as something that is sacred. And to be going with all these different people and then for you to be bragging about it as if it makes you some sort of a bigger man in my eyes, it really doesn't. To be honest, at all.
I wanted actually to ask you a question, Sophie, about the whole faith. How do you feel about, because you identify as a Christian, right? Strong in your faith. How do you feel about men who use religion as a scapegoat, as to be like, that's why they want to know about women's body count? They claim to be religious men. They claim to be, devout Christians, and they have high body counts, but the standard that they have for their women is significantly lower, if not virgin level. Because we've spoken about men who have been, I wouldn't date a virgin, but what about the ones who sleep with anything going, but would only want to settle down with a virgin and put that based on being a good Christian or a good religious woman?
To be honest, I really dislike anybody who misuses religion for their own cause. And I think that's the thing about Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, any religion can be used by someone to kind of tell their own narrative and to okay the behavior that they want to. People do this, how wars have been fought in the name of religion. And you're just like, this isn't actually reflective of the religion. So I don't like when men do that, because for me, those are usually men from not my personal experience, but experience of other men that I know who have been that way towards women, female friends that I've known in the past, and not men who want to reveal how many people they've slept with. That's a secret, but they need to make sure that, that their woman is untouched. And I think it's just a bunch of crap. Like, ideally, because I am Christian, I'd probably say quite conservative. Even though they wouldn't think that I'm conservative, but I'd probably say that my religion is quite conservative, and there is a lot of stigma attached to people who have sex. Like, they don't even want women to talk about having had sex, even probably until after they're married. Like, they just, like, it might even be off-putting to a guy to know that you've had sex with somebody. And I don't really like all of that stuff. I feel like we live in the 21st century. I still believe sex should be something for marriage. That's my own personal view that I would never put onto anybody else. But people are getting married at like 30 years old. Like, realistically, for people, that might not happen. It wasn't for me. I wasn't a virgin when I got married. So I don't like when people use religion for their own personal causes.
Do you know what though, Sophie and Monah? I don't even think it's just like you gave that as one example. It's very common in the Asian community as well. So this idea that, everybody kind of goes out, because not everywhere, obviously there are exceptions. Things are, especially living here in the UK, some things are much more progressive. But in these very, very deeply traditional families, you basically hide the person that you're dating until you're ready to make a commitment to them and you're getting married. And so people obviously have had partners, both in the dating sense and in the sexual sense. But I do notice sometimes when I've had conversations with people that, you've got men out there sort of sowing their wild oats, doing whatever they want to do. But when it comes to settle down to the woman that they want to bring home to their family, they have this expectation, like you were saying, that they should be this sort of pure, untouched, holier than thou woman. And it's kind of unfair. And I know that there are, I know somebody that was in a relationship for 4 years. They never slept together. And one of the things he said afterwards was like, well, at least when she goes to, to meet a partner, or she's being put forward for introductions and stuff, that's not something she has to worry about, that she'll get judged for it. And I was sitting here thinking 4 years is a long time. But it's so crazy that should even be a thought. You know, if you've been together and you have that connection with each other and you want to take your relationship to that place, that should be, like you say, about yourselves, about your faith. It shouldn't be because you're afraid of what might come next if you cross that line. And it's so very common. And I think the other thing that was really interesting that you were saying, Sophie, is trying to think how to word this. How do we get to a point where it's no longer so much of a stigma? Because I kind of say that it's a personal choice. So you might have reasons for personal decisions that you've made based on faith. Ryan, I'm not religious. I've got personal reasons why I've made the choices that I've made. Mona might have different reasons she's made the choices she's made. And when you get into that conversation with people, that's why I'm saying I feel like the follow-up questions, you don't get a chance to do that, because as soon as if you base it solely off of a number rather than what your experiences have been and what you believe, you just can shut the conversation down. And I'm with you, Sophie. I mean, if a guy told me they'd had 300 partners, I would probably say, I don't think you're for me. And that's not me saying, you go about your business, you do what you want. Somebody out there will be comfortable with that. I know that I'm not comfortable with it, and so I don't think this was going to work because I don't think we have the same attitude towards it. But it's not about a judgment, and I feel like the judgment is often one way. It's always coming back on women for, like you say, the Goldilocks effect of there's not, it's only a small amount, it's too many. And I think it's most important when, or at least if I think about the times for me when it's been most important, when I've had that conversation, is when I was younger and I hadn't slept with anybody. And so when I was considering sleeping with somebody for the first time, that's why it was important to me. I was like, it wasn't even really about, I'm going to think about the numbers and make some judgment on you. It's just, I'm entering into something completely unknown. And so I just want to know how the land lies. And I'm not saying that it would be unimportant to you if you care about me, but this is super important to me because this is the first time something's going to happen. So I don't want to do it and then later find out that actually you've been with 400 women and I'm just a notch on a bedpost, because men are good at lying.
Through their teeth, voluntarily, unsolicited, for free, for no reason, for fun.
I think you said some really interesting things there, and I was reading, I think again, in InStyle magazine, but they were talking about questions like me not wanting to talk about or reveal my body count, and I hate the word reveal. I'm not revealing anything to you. It's not a confession. It is what it is. It's a fact. So I'm gonna just take that like me telling you what my body count is in a relationship. I don't think that tells you anything about what I actually like in the bedroom, because does it tell you about and I'm not into it, but if you are, that's your thing, like BDSM. It's not for me. Whipping, it feels like my mum trying to come for me with the belt. It just feels, no, I'm not here for that spank. No, it makes me very uncomfortable. So, like, does it tell you what you're into in that sense? Does it talk about what challenges you've had in the bedroom? It doesn't tell you about any of this stuff. So I feel like if it's someone who really is asking because, they want to be a better partner to you, they want to know what you're comfortable with, there are a million questions that you can ask surrounding that. Yeah.
So if somebody
Agreed.
was to ask you, would you, this is to both of you ladies, would you refuse to answer? Would you comfortably answer? What would you, and I'm talking about right now, current day.
I would refuse to answer, but it wouldn't be in a, no, I'm not going to tell you. I'd be like, why do you want to know? And I'd rather have that conversation, because I'm like, yeah, that's the conversation that I would have, because I think for men, personally, I think it plays on their mind too much. I don't think that they can really ever let go of it, and I think that men have a whole ego trip about it. Like for me, it's protecting the guy as much as it is me not wanting to share things about myself that I feel like they don't need to know. But for me, I'm like, so you don't have to feel all the pressure and this and that, because I think men are going to make something of it, whatever that number is. And yeah, so I just wouldn't say. But I guess recently I've dated guys that didn't want to know, but I got to a certain age where I wasn't even interested in having sex anymore either, anyway. So I was more looking for a guy who was willing to not have sex. And I got to that age in my 20s because I was just like, I'm a person of faith, and I just felt like I never ever got anything from sex that was worth the pain and the heartbreak when those relationships ended. And I decided, actually, I think the way that I have been taught to regard sex and to kind of keep it for someone who I'm going to actually commit to and not have to deal with all the other things that come along with sex, because there's a lot of feelings and this and that come along with it. I was like, I just don't even want to entertain that anymore. I'm just not interested in it. So I just stopped at a certain point. I was just like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So maybe that stopped guys from asking, because when you're in your mid-20s, you're just like, I'm not having sex and I don't plan to. I don't know if they're that interested anymore about asking you, because you're like, well, okay.
So I'll answer your question in a second, Mona. I think that's the point that I maybe inarticulately was trying to make earlier, is people's attitudes can change over time. So what you did in the past, or what you're prepared to do in the past, is not necessarily indicative of what you might be willing to do in the future. And as we get older, we all mature a bit. Boys mature a little bit slower than we do, but we do eventually get to a point where it shouldn't really be about just uncovering numbers for, bravado or ego. I would answer the question if someone asked me, but similar to Sophie, I would want to know why you're asking me. I honestly don't have a problem talking about it with a partner. And I think, similar to Sophie, probably not for the same reasons, but it's definitely a question you get asked a lot less. And I think that there are also, Sophie's saying you won't answer it almost to protect them from their own reaction and their own judgments that they're invariably going to have. I have also noticed that men won't ask you anymore because they're aware that they will have a judgment, they will have a reaction, and they know they can't control it. So rather than it's almost as though, I don't know, if they based on discussions you've had about previous relationships or your dating history, if they've done a quick mental calculation and they think they've worked out roughly what it might be in their own minds, if they don't think that that's the number that they wanted to hear, they just don't ask, because ignorance is bliss. So some of them kind of self-censor. What about you, Mona? Right back at you.
Yeah, I would say I have no shame in saying older.
And I don't think there should be any shame in saying. Yeah, I agree. There should be no shame.
I would definitely want to know what your intent. I think, just like what you ladies have said, I think it comes with a lot of maturity and growth. When I was quite naive into situations and stuff, you kind of feel like you're just obligated to say whatever and do whatever, But then as you get older, I think it's very powerful to kind of hold on to what you want and navigate how you would like to move throughout the situation, and not worry about someone else's comfortability or settling their curiosity. It's about what you want. So yeah, I would be a little bit inclined to have a discussion. I wouldn't just be like, my body count is blah, blah, blah. I would ask, like you said, want to know why and stuff, but I wouldn't use it as a bargaining chip. I'd ask, and as I'm asking, you better answer too, because like Marisha said, I'm not doing that. You asking, get away with not answering. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel you.
I have a question for you, Sophie, because you mentioned obviously having some friends that had either not lost their virginity or had kind of happened for them later in life. And I have some people that I know that was the same. And they almost fear the question for the complete opposite reason, right? Which is just, what is that other person gonna think about me? Wrongly, I might add, but is that person going to make a judgment about me having reached a certain age if they're in the absence of a reason, like, this is because this is my faith or whatever it is? Do you think that is something that like how that conversation could be handled? Because I think that's a different type of, I don't know, I feel like if your history is what it is, if it's got numbers in the body count, what those were, whether they were sort of quick dalliances, you know if they were relationships, and you should have by now made your peace with it. But I think there can be so many different reasons why somebody reaches a certain age who wants to have had that experience, but perhaps for whatever reason hasn't. How do you think you can approach that conversation? Because if you don't answer the question, but it's important, if you then take your relationship with that person to that place, when's the right moment to say, you know, my body count is 0, and actually this is a significant experience for me if we're going to take our relationship there?
I think if you're a virgin, then you have to have that conversation, because I think when it comes to the bedroom, if you've had some sexual experience, there's certain things that you're going to know and certain things you are just not going to know. I've known people, and I'm not kidding you, who have, and this was a bad thing on the church, brought them up to be virgins. They've gone and they've married virgins as women. And when it gets to the bedroom, they don't know anything. They don't know where to put it. They don't know to say that they want something. They don't know. So being a virgin doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk about it with the person who is going to be your significant other. And I think, like you're saying, people have expectations of sex, especially women, because the way that it's taught to us in the media, like as much as we might see women being in more relationships, it's usually when she meets the right guy, that's when she has the orgasm of her life and the sex is amazing. And that's how she knows that he's the right one, where that might not be the case, but women will take those ideas into marriage or into a relationship if they're a virgin. So I think it has to take time. It has to be someone that you're willing to trust. And then you talk about maybe boundaries, and then you bring up the thing like, you know, I haven't had any experience with someone because it was something that I wanted to wait on. And that's where I'm at. But you have to have that conversation. Otherwise, you're going to potentially let a man go in blind, and he might not be as sensitive, as caring as he needs to be, physically and emotionally.
I completely agree. And what this topic of virginity going into marriage, like, it's very close to my heart, and I could speak on it for hours and hours, but I shan't.
We need to bring this one back, because I will talk on this one.
Yeah, I want to pick your brains on this too. We will definitely bring this back. It's very, very interesting. But thank you so much for listening and watching Ethnically Speaking. Let's keep the conversation going. Do you think knowing body counts is important? When is the appropriate time to ask? Would you answer or would you ask? Let us know in the comments below. For a summary of everything we've discussed today, head over to unitedmelaningroup.com/ESO65. There's a link in the description below. Thank you so much to Marisha, who has come on the show. If you are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. If you would like to keep up with Marisha's adventures, follow her on Instagram or Twitter at Marisha Pink. Me and Sophie will be back on Wednesday, where you don't want to miss out, because we'll be answering some interesting Q&As. But until then, wash your hands, wear your masks, keep your distance, and most of all, stay safe.